We're here at the ICC. You are today announcing that you are applying for arrest warrants for top military and political leadership in the Israel-Gaza war since the October 7th events. First and foremost, explain to me exactly what you're asking for and who you are charging.
Today, Kристian, we've applied for warrants to the pretrial chamber of the International Criminal Court in relation to three individuals that are Hamas members. Sinwar, who's in charge on the ground.
That's Yahya Sinwar?
Absolutely. Dave, who's in charge of the Al-Qassam Brigade. And Hania, who's one of their political bureau based in Doha.
What are the charges?
The charges are extermination, murder, taking of hostages, rape and sexual assault in detention. So these are the key crimes that are alleged to have been committed by these three individuals. The world was shocked on the 7th of October when people were ripped from their bedrooms, from their homes, from the different kibbutzim in Israel. And people have suffered enormously, and we have a variety of evidence to support the applications that we've submitted to the judges.
You have also issued warrants against the top political and military leadership of the government of the State of Israel.
We've applied for warrants. Of course, the judges must determine whether or not to issue them, but we've applied today, we'll apply for warrants for Prime Minister Netnyahu and also Minister of Defence غالانت for the crimes of causing extermination, causing starvation as a method of war, including the denial of humanitarian relief supplies, deliberately targeting civilians in conflict. I have been saying repeatedly in Cairo in October last year, at the Rafah crossing, on Israeli television, in Ramallah, everywhere I can, to the parties to the conflict: comply now, don't complain later. And of course, hostages have not been released. That insidious crime, it continues for so many innocent Israelis that are in custody, are held hostage by Hamas, and families that are waiting for their return. And of course, we see pictures of starving children, of emaciated children. We have a variety of evidence to support, not polemics, but evidence that's been forensically analysed to sustain the charge also of starvation being used by Netanyahu and غالانت as a method of war. And it's awful that in 2024 we have had to submit these applications to the judges of the ICC for warrants.
I'm going to get into starvation as a weapon of war in a moment, but first I want to ask you, the word genocide has been used by both sides, and many believe that genocide is being committed, but you do not. You're not using that word.
Well, this is an active investigation, and we have criminal charges that we can use: genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. In relation to this current stage of investigations, the charges that we have put forward to the judges do not include genocide, but we are continuing to investigate. It's a very complex situation. We've not been allowed access into Gaza by the Israeli authorities. We're also continuing our investigations in relation to the Hamas attacks, and if and when the evidence points us in a particular direction, we will not hesitate to act. So it's still an active investigation, but yes, today we haven't.
What is extermination?
It's mass killing.
Different than genocide?
Yes. Genocide is defined by specific intent, not only killing, but an intention to destroy the group in whole or in part. So it's a specific intent to destroy the group in whole or in part. So we have not included in our application today a request for warrants for the crime of genocide.
I'm going to read you some heavy criticism that you've received from the United States. As we know, the United States is not a party to the ICC, nor is Israel. Recently, when word came out that this may be happening at some point, U.S. senators and U.S. congresspeople, mostly Republicans, wrote you a letter signed by Senator Tom Cotton, Mitch McConnell, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and others. This is the quote: "Target Israel and we will target you. If you move forward with the measures indicated in the report, we will move to end all American support for the ICC, sanction your employees and associates, and bar you and your families from the United States. You have been warned. Is that a threat?
I think that's the plain meaning of it in English. But, you know, there's hotheads everywhere, and there's people that are mature statesmen and stateswomen and leaders. There are those that have fidelity to something greater than themselves, whether it's their constitutions, but ultimately it's the rule of law. The good news is, I think, for the last 2.5 years, we've had very positive engagement with the Biden administration in the United States. We're working across a range of situations, whether it's in Ukraine or Darfur. And I've said to distinguished members on the Hill and to the administration that Rome Statute values are quintessential American values. It's against bullying. It's against the untrammeled power against the most vulnerable. It's the rights and the dignity of the individual. It's the protection of babies. I mean, these are fundamental American values that should engender bipartisan support. Now, of course, this situation, unfortunately, lies on the San Andreas fault of international politics and strategic interests. And, of course, I've had some elected leaders speak to me and be very blunt. This court is built for Africa and for thugs like Putin, was what one senior leader told me. We don't view it like that. This court is the legacy of Nuremberg. This court is a sad indictment of humanity. This court should be the triumph of law over power and brute force. Grab what you can, take what you want, do what you will, and we're going to simply be we're not going to be dissuaded by threats or any other activities, because in the end we have to fulfill our responsibilities as prosecutors, as the men and women of the office, as judges, as the registry, to something bigger than ourselves, which is the fidelity to justice. And we're not going to be swayed by the different types of threats, some of which are public and some maybe are not.
You mentioned, without names, that there are many who have been indicted who are not in democratic states, who are essentially despots. Israel is a democracy. They have a judiciary, they have law enforcement, they have elected leaders. Why do you need to do this when they have a system that could do this?
I'd much rather Israel does it. I mean, Israel, you're right, it has a very good Supreme Court, it has very qualified, brilliant lawyers. But even if you read recently public information, for example, in the New York Times, I think the Bergman and Mazzelli report, if one goes back to the 80s and look at the Karp report, a Deputy Attorney General of Israel who said that Israel was unwilling and unable to investigate crimes in the occupied territories, if one looks at the Sassoon report, if one looks at General, US three-star general that was in Washington, D.C., between 2019 and 2021, who said there's no accountability, the simple truth is that for all the application of the law in the territory of Israel, unfortunately it doesn't appear to be applied with vigour or sincerity in the occupied territories or in Gaza. And this is why we have to move forward. Of course, if Israel disagrees, if they think they are investigating the same individuals and the same conduct and the policies that underpin them, they are free, notwithstanding their objections to jurisdiction, to raise a challenge before the judges of the court. And that's what I would advise them to do. But the simple truth of the matter is the disregard of the law in this situation and the policies and the utterances that are coming from the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defence, support and corroborate the other evidence we have from a variety of sources.